Hi everyone, it's Jason. I am J187 in the Stokastic Discord and on the major DFS sites. And this is going to be part two of our how to create an MLB model in Excel. So where we left off last time, and if you haven't watched the first video for the MLB model, you're probably going to want to stop here and go back and do that because we're going to be picking up right where we left off. And where we did leave off, couple things here to start out with. In the top stacks tool, last time I had kind of just created my own rudimentary top stacks tool with a couple columns in here because they hadn't updated in Stokastic their top stacks tool for this week, but it is updated now, or at least it's partially updated. So I've added that into here. I'm noticing that it's not complete, but at least there's some more data there. And then one other thing is when toward the end of the last video, when we added these filter bars at the top here in order to be able to sort and all that, I had you copy all the way across to the very, very beginning, including this column right here. It's not a big deal, but you probably want to undo that part of it because that will screw up the numbering system here for the lineups, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I don't know how much you'll use that or not, but to do that, you would just highlight everything all the way across again, and then click Control L to get rid of that filter. And then starting here, go back everywhere except for that first column and Control L, and that'll fix it. And then to renumber this, I've already done that. So you would just type 1, 2, 3 here and then send it down and it will reorder these. So a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. Let's jump right into the video because I'm going to try to keep this one shorter than the other one, hopefully. So in the last video when we made this sorter, I had mentioned that to pull the top stacks, we didn't want to include the pitchers, and there was a couple of different ways to do that. One, you could put this line in here that says, look above, and if this is a pitcher, then don't put anything here, populate nothing. And that is definitely one way to do it. It works. And if you're going to go no further with this model, that's probably a good way to do it. However, I also said that we could do a batters only section and read off of that. And so we're going to start out by doing that here because the batters only section is going to help us to pull our stacks immensely. So the two things that we're doing here with this video is we're going to add an exposures table and we are going to pull stacks. As hopefully you know by now, MLB DFS is very centric around stacks, stacking batters, 5 batters from one team, 2 from another, 4 batters from one team, 2 or 3 from another, that sort of thing. And actually, before we go ahead and start making the batters only section, let's just bang out a quick exposures table. So, and again, I just want to remind you one more time, we are doing very basic stuff here, and I do highly recommend that you take this model, make it your own, format it however you want, add whatever you want to it, subtract whatever you want from it. So really just kind of make it your own. To start out here, however, I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do the exposures table, okay? So first thing we're going to need is a list of the players, and then we're going to want to know the number of lineups that each player is in, and then the percentage, and then you'll probably want some other information alongside here to, just kind of check against what you've got, and in this case, I will put the field's ownership here as well. So let's start by centering these, give this a little space for the players, and then I told you before, I always like to left justify the players, but give them a little bit of an indent bump here, just to make it nice and neat. So now, what we don't want to do is we don't want to pull these players from anywhere on this page. So if you have any listing of the players on this page, don't pull it from there. It will get messed up when you do sorting. So let's pull a fresh set of players from in here. And if you remember, the way we start up by doing that is by saying if, we go into here and say if A3 equals blank, then blank, so we don't pull zeros or placeholder stuff. And then again, this is copy player list A3, not A3, which would live in the sorter tab. If copy player list A3 is blank, then blank. If it's not blank, then pull whatever's there in A3. And we can start off by doing that, and that'll grab us a player. Now, we're going to scroll down to however many players we anticipate having. Let's do 600 for now. You may want to go 750. I think I told you before, I really cannot remember how many players are in a big MLB slate. Too many things going through my brain. So now we got our players. Now all we need to do is count the number of lineups we have them in. So now let's say we know that our sorter here can go to 2,000 lineups, presumably if you followed what I did. You could have 2,000 potential lineups here, but in many cases we're just taking a certain number of these lineups to actually play. Like after we sort, we're taking the top 150 or the top 20. So we probably don't want to know how many times Jake DeGrom appears in all 2,000 lineups. We want to know how many times he appears in the lineups that we're playing. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do this. The first is, let's just imagine that you're a 150 max player. What we want to do here is we want to take this name, and first of all, if BQ is blank, blank, because we don't want to populate information here if we run out of players. Then what we want to do is we want to start looking for that player. So what we do is count if. Where do we want to count? What range? Well, we don't want to look in here because that's what the ID is. We want to look in here because that's where the names are going to match, the stripped names. And we can go across here, and we can go down to 150 rows down. Okay, which is 152. So count from there to there. And what do we want to count? The number of times BQ3, which is Jake DeGrom's name, appears. Okay? So we are counting. What did I do? Oh, you know what? This should be if BQ3 equals blank, then blank, first of all. So then we're counting if in this range it's BQ3. Now note, we are going to want to lock this because we're going to want to look in that range for every single player. So we're going to use our F4 trick here to lock. And what did I do wrong? Oh, I said equals equals. My gosh. I've had coffee too. That's crazy. There we go. All fixed. So we know now he's in 39 lineups, and we can use our little For some reason, it doesn't want to give me my little cross. There we go. And 29 for Garrett Cole, and Hunter Green is in 23. So now we would come over here, and if BQ3 equals blank, then blank. To get the percentage, we would simply just do BR3 divided by the number of lineups that we looked at, which was 150. So now we know DeGrom's in 26%. And then to pull the field, we just do a simple index match. Equals if BQ3 is blank, blank. Index, we're going to be looking for BQ3 on the main page. What are we going to be looking in? Well, the data we want to pull is ownership. So we're going to come here, or wherever your ownership is. What row? This is where we use our match formula. And we match BQ3. Where are we trying to match it to? Here. Always exact. And voila, we have the field ownership. The field is playing no Jake DeGrom. That's crazy. Obviously, none of these numbers are, accurate right now, and we need to put a percentage on this as well. So here we go. Okay, there we go. So now we've got the number of lineups, our percentage, and the field. So this could be it. come up here, merge and center, title this, exposures, and you could be done. And if you decide to play 20 max the next day, then you're screwed. No. If you decide to play 20 max the next day, you would have to come in here and change this 152 to 22, right? And then you'd have to do it here as well. Alternatively, we can do this. We can add another section in here. Where we do something like number of lineups. How many lineups are we playing today? Okay. And we can center this. And I told you in the last video that I like this pale yellow color for anything that I can type into, or that I should type into, to let me know. So now we've got this little settings block here, right? And we can say, how many lineups am I playing today? 150. Now, how do we utilize this in our formula? Well, to do that, we are going to use an indirect formula, and it's actually the same kind of indirect formula. See, we used here, only we're not going to be using it with the substitute address match. We are going to be using it strictly to determine the number of lineups. So the places that we're going to look between M and V is still the same, okay? But it's this, and we're still going to start at M3 because always our lineups are going to be floated to the top. It's this that we don't want to continue looking in 152. We want to look in whatever number this is going to be. So how do we do that? And I'm not going to lie to you, I stumble sometimes with this indirect formula. It's hard to remember. So I'm going to take a minute here and refresh myself with the exact syntax of it. Actually, that's not going to help me because I do it a very different way. Let's try to see if we can hash it out. So I do know that M3 is going to stay the same, but for this, we want to do indirect. Okay. Now the reference, the V, we are going to want to hard code in because that's kind of the only other way to do this. It's indirect, and then the V for column V is in quotation marks, and then you do indirect of V, and I think it's and, right? And BQ4. Is that correct? And BQ4, we want to lock in because it's always going to be right here. And then we're still looking in for BS3. So let's see what kind of, and close our, let's see if that, no, that doesn't like what we did. All right, of course not. Oh, I need to close that here, not here. Oh, so that actually seems to have worked, right? Because if we're looking in, well, so the other thing too to keep in mind is what this is going to do is it's going to take the number here and assign it to how far down we're going to look. But we're starting in row 3, and we know from our other formula here that we need to be looking into 152. We need to add that to get 150 place differentials between 3 and 152. So you can add 2 to this, okay? Because that will basically mean we'll take the 150 lineups that we're typing here. But if this is correct, then we should copy this down. Garrett Cole should stay 29. Hunter Green should stay 23. Nothing should change here, correct? Yeah. So now let's see what happens if we look in just the top 10. Obviously, there are 39 Jake DeGrom lineups there. And it fixes, yeah, it changes. Perfect. So now that is, so I got it right. All right, so this is the formula. indirect of V, and then whatever is typed here. And basically what this does is it just kind of puts these things together indirectly. V, 10 plus 2 is 12. So it says count between M3 and V12, right? Which are the 10 lineups between here, okay? So there you go. That's a fun way to make your exposure table come to life with whatever number of lineups you're playing. But what you do want to do here also is you want to change this 150 to BQ4 because 8 out of 25 lineups is 32%. Okay, that's the only other change. Now, another little thing I will show you. If you do this, I recommend, if you make this table, I recommend making it into a table. Because the one thing Excel won't let you do, you see how you've added these filters and you can actually go in here and search for values, and I can go down here and I can actually search for these values, filter it down. You can't do that in multiple places on one sheet. You get one shot at that. So if I were to need to, include that over here, I would have to take these off and then connect it all the way across. But then when I sorted, it would sort this too. The trick to get around that is to make separate tables. Tables always allow you to filter, and you don't need to worry about filtering together. They'll filter independently of whatever else is here. So I would recommend starting with your headings, coming down to wherever you decided would be your final possibility. I think we did 600. And then come up here to format as table. Pick yourself out a fancy looking table here. Make sure that my table has headers is checked if you did capture the headers. Say okie dokie. And it adds this formatting to your table, and notice it populates the filters. And now what's cool about this is now you can say sort by largest. And of course it goes away because blanks are viewed as large according to Excel, which is of course very strange. What you can do to get around that though is come in here and say if BS3 equals blank, then 0, so that there are no blanks. Get out blanks. And then when you sort largest to smallest, you can find out your largest to smallest exposures. You could sort this however you want. It won't affect anything else on your table. I mean, on your page here. And if you wanted to do this sorting over here, you would just do the same thing with this formula. Make it 0 if it's blank. And then you could sort by largest here, which will give you the same result, but however you want to do it, okay? And then obviously you would have to do the same thing with the 0 here if you wanted to be able to sort by the largest field to see like how you how do you compare it to the largest that the field has, largest exposures. And then, you can come over here. I have no idea what the hell blue they used, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. Make it two-tone. That's fine. All right, and there's your exposures table. Let's get into the stacking, okay? So we mentioned that the first thing we want to do is we want some batters only stuff, right? I am going to do that here, okay? I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. And right here, I'm going to create my space for batters only. Now, note that there are exactly 8 batters on both Fanduel and Draftkings. So we only need 8 spots, not 9, not 10. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And we'll insert 8 spots here. We'll calm that down a little bit. And we will copy and paste our, whoa, why would I do that when there are 10 in there? I gotta do this one manually. I must be crazy. So batters only, B1, B2, and then you can highlight and Excel will follow your pattern. B8. There we go. So now we got batters only. I will make this, I like this color. Okay, batters only. There we go. So now I have batters only. Batter 1, batter 2, batter 3. Again, we don't need positionality here. We just need to know that these are not pitchers. These are the batters. Now, we're going to need a formula here to find just the batters. Formula is actually pretty easy, okay? So it's easy for MLB because of the way that it's done. So we can just say equals if M3 equals blank, then blank, okay? Now, if A1, and we're going to lock A1. Remember, A1 is where we type DK or FD to tell our model what we're on. If it's Fanduel, then N3 is my first batter because Fanduel has one pitcher and then the batters start. Okay? However, if A1 is DK, then it is O3 for the first batter because there are two pitchers on Draftkings and the batter starts here. Now, that will tell us that Danny Jansen is our first batter, and that is correct. So now we can leave this dynamic. It doesn't matter. This is locked. That's locked. And now we're saying that batter 2, if we copy this over, would be O3 on Fanduel and P3 on Fanduel, and on DK, and that is accurate. So we can just copy this across now. And then we can copy it down. And so that will give us all of our batters only. So from here on in, anything that we want to do on our model that we want to include everybody, we can use M to V. But anywhere that we want to do something that we want batters only included, we can use W to AD. So you can do that if you wanted to do like a separate ownership section for pitchers and batters. I know some people do like to do that. However you want to do it. But now that we have these batters only, I'm going to come back to our top stacks where we pulled that in. And also, just a reminder, top stacks is one thing. You can pull in top pitchers. You can pull in top batters. Pull in whatever the hell you want. So top stacks right now is being has been done with this look up if this is a pitcher, don't count it. But now that we have batters only, we can do this in a slightly better way. And I actually want to put this before this team section because when I do my stacks, I kind of like to have the team section right there because it's a big part of how I do stacks. So let's move the top stacks. And we only need 8 of them now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll insert a spot here. And basically, I'll just take this formula from up here, bring it over here, and what we don't need this if this equals P anymore because it isn't going to equal P anymore. It's going to equal batter 1. We just need to do index of top stacks, F to F, which we're going to have to change in a minute, by the way, match BG3. So right now, I'm matching this team, right, which is still going to stay the same, to top stacks A to A. But actually, no, that's not what we want to do. Yeah, that's not what we want to do. Because, let me see. Yeah, We don't want to do that because that's going to be for the pitcher. So let's, I know why. I know I'm confused. Let's put this on hold for a minute. I briefly got confused, but here's what I forgot to tell you. We are going to also convert our our team to batters only, because I don't care what team the pitchers are for. So that's the other thing. So this batters, I'm going to grab, I keep saying batters, this team section. I am going to grab this and I'm going to unmerge, pop that in. Excel loves to do this. I do one small little bit of housekeeping and it's like, oh, you don't want to have that selected anymore? All right, so we're going to paste this in here. And I don't need these anymore. Goodbye. And then we just need to make sure that this is matching M3, but now we want it to match W3. And that's really all you want to do. Just change that to W3 so that it starts matching the first batter. And then move this over. And now this should represent the 8 teams for our 8 batters. Okay. So here we are. And now we can resume here. Copy this, paste it here, change this color to kind of, whatever we had for top stacks. Okay. And now we can do this, paste this in here, and get rid of this if it's pitcher, because it won't be. And now index, top stacks, F to F, we still have to change that. BG3 is correct. So now we just have to roll with that now, and we're good, okay? And we center it. But what we do want to do is come back in here and notice that, top stacks is F to F. So if you're using the model where we left off last time, I don't think yours is going to say F to F. I think it's going to say like B to B maybe, because I think I made that rudimentary top stacks tool and I just kind of use these 2 columns. So whatever, just make sure that where you're pulling top stack percentage, if that's what you're pulling in, matches here. If you're pulling in value or stack score or whatever the hell it is, just match it up, okay? Or if you're not even doing this, then don't do it. I don't care. But I'm just showing you how to fix this now to match the way that we do it with the batters only. Obviously, there's a lot of not availables here because this is very incomplete at this point. Like the Mets are not even here listed, but they're on the slate. So as that gets populated more and more, updated more and more, this will start to fill in. But now we have our top stacks, we have our batters only, and we can get rid of this top stack section because it is worthless and useless. Okay. And then the last thing we want to do here is we want to change the color of this and call it team. And I like to make this like a dark blue. Okay. So now we have our teams. We have top stacks. We have team. Now, right off the bat, next to this, we're going to need 16 new columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I lost track. Haha, I don't care. All right. Now, we're going to need 2 more sections. Did I get it right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I missed. 8. Cool. So we get 2 new sections here. This is going to be count for stacks. And this one's going to be batteurs. And let's change some colors here. And I really, really don't care what colors I use for this because I'm just trying to speed this along. I think part of the reason why my last video was like 2.5 hours is because I was like, oh, that's a pretty color. All right. So now what we want to do is we want to count for our stacks. How do we know what our stacks look like? It's quite simply the number of each team that's represented by our batters, right? So in this first one, we can kind of see right off the bat just by looking, we've got 5 Boston batters and not more than 1 from any other team. So this is what you would call a naked 5-man stack or a 5-1. 5-1 Boston stack. So what we want to do is we want to begin by counting how many times this team appears in this range. So and for this we can do if BG3 equals blank, then blank, because we know if there's no team, then none of this matters. If BG3 equals blank, and equals blank, then blank, count if, okay? Now, it's asking for the range that we're going to count, which is BG3 to BN3, okay? That is, I missed this if again. I don't know why I keep doing that. So now we see we're looking in this range, and the criteria is we're counting if what matches, in other words, right? If what is found in there. If the criteria is found in the range, count how many times. So BG3. Now, we do want to lock this range because we're going to be looking in this range every time. But we want the BG3 to be dynamic because here we're going to count how many times Toronto appears, but here we want to count how many times Boston appears, and then here Boston, right? So I forgot to add my last exclamation point, parenthesis, but Excel will oblige and do that for me. Copy it across, and now we're starting to see. There's 1 instance of Toronto, 5 of Boston, 5 of Boston, 5 of Boston, 1 of Philly, 1 of Milwaukee, 5 of Boston, 5 of Boston. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. So I will just send this down. And there we go. Now we have our counts for our stacks. And the next thing that we want to do is pull in the batter that each player represents. Where in the order are they hitting? So to do that, and so one thing I noticed is that Fantasy Cruncher is doing something new this year. If you pull that data into here, they're listing 1 potential, 2 potential, 2 potential, 1 potential, which is good because more information is better, but it's problematic in that we don't want to have our batter listed as 1 potential. How we fix this is we do the following. We take note of the fact that position is in J and order is in L. So J and L are the 2 that we care about, and we come over here, we start a new column. And this is another order. I like to leave a space here because this is something that is not included in this big, this big data acquisition that we pulled over from here. This is something I'm calculating, so I leave a space to let myself remember that. If a 3 equals blank, then blank. Otherwise, did I say it was J and L, right? I did. I know I did. If J3 equals pitcher, then blank, because I don't want to pull the batting order of the pitcher. Well, actually, is that true? Because what if it's the National League and the pitcher is batting 9th? I don't know if that's a good question. For some reason, I don't know the answer to that. Give me a second and I'll go back to that. But so for now, if it's pitcher, then blank. Otherwise, what we want to do is we want to we want to parse these numbers out from here. This could not be easier because there are no batters that are going to be more than one digit. 9 is the highest it goes to. If there was a 10 there, then we'd have to do a lot more work. But since it's 9, we know that it's always going to be the leftmost digit of that column, no matter what. So really, we can just pull the left of L3. How many characters? Just one. And then close it all up. And if we send, now remember we can't send this down because this is a blank. One trick you can use if you do want to do that and you don't want to copy and find how many, you can just put a 1 here temporarily and then copy both of these down and then just click up here and delete everything. It's kind of a shortcut. Now you see we've got, these are starting to look good, okay? Pulling it nicely. However, I can tell you that since there's text in this, this is going to be formatted as text instead of a number, and that's going to screw us up when we start to, if we start to try to use that data. But I think for now it should be fine. Let's see. We might have to come back to that, but for now, I put this in AM, right? I did. So now we want to pull the batters equals if, and I'm going to go back to W, which is like my first batter name. If W3 is blank, then blank. Otherwise, we need to index this match. What are we matching? W3, that first batter name. Match W3. Where are we matching it? To A to A. And we're matching exact always. And now we want to just make sure that before we copy across, we lock our 2 references that won't change. Okay, the W can be dynamic. It needs to be dynamic. And here we go, and we can copy this down. I said you copy down. I told you to copy down. There we go. So now we know, we've got, B3's Arroyo, Devers, and Turner. So we get Arroyo batting 7th, Devers 2nd, Turner 1st. Okay, so we get that. Here's our batting orders. Okay. So the next step in pulling our stacks is going to be to add 3 more columns here. And I'm going to make these like, I don't know, maybe this color. And call this stacks. And this is going to be stack 1, stack 2, stack 3, as you may have guessed. This is basically just my main stack, my substack. So if it's a 5-2 or a 2-2-2 or something like that. Okay. So now, how do we go about determining which is our main stack in this count section? Well, it would be the one we have the most of. And since we're counting here, we know that the 5s are the ones we have the most of. So we can simply just say equals if M3 equals blank, then blank. And again, M3 is our first player. It's just to determine if there's anything in this row at all. Then we can say the large of BO to BV, the large of this range. And then that's the array is the range. And then K means like which, so K would mean like 1 would be first largest, 2 would be second largest. We want to know the first large. And that's 5, which makes sense. Send it down. Okay. We did something wrong here. I'm noticing this. Cincinnati is 5. Oh, jeez. I accidentally locked the numbers. Whoops. Don't do that. Just lock the columns, not the rows. Oh, that's more fun. All right. I didn't do that anywhere else, did I? All right. There we go. 5, 5, 3, right? So we know our first team here is a 5 stack, our second's a 5. This is a 3 stack is our primary stack. Like we don't have a stack larger than 3. We don't have a 4 or 5 team stack. So that was pretty easy, right? For stack 2, well, I'm going to show you the wrong way to do this first because it's very intuitive to do it wrong. And I kind of want you to see why the intuitive thought process here is wrong. So if we look back in this same range, only this time we look for, I know what you're thinking. Let's look for the second largest one, right? Because we're trying to find the second, the team with the second most. But guess what? That's 5-2. Because there are 5 5s. So we're not going to get our substack because that's still our primary. So how do we get around that? Well, if we know that there are the same number of instances of each count as the count states, there are 5 5s, there are 3 3s, right? And I know right here you might be looking and say, no, there's 6 3s. Okay, there are 6 3s, but there are 3 for each team. So because of that, what we can do is we can say we want the 6th largest number here, which is CE plus 1. So we could just do CE plus 1. Actually, CE3 plus 1, excuse me. Okay, so now we're asking for the 6th largest. But here we're asking for the 4th largest because it's CE plus 1. Hello, why'd you freeze? Okay, so let's see what that tells us. So that tells us that here it's a 5-1, this is a 5-2, this is a 3-3, this is a 5-1, so that seems to be working just fine. Okay, so now the question is, how do we find our substack? Well, I'm sorry, our second substack. Well, if M3 is blank, then it's blank. Otherwise, now in this case, I am going to say, let's say that if CE3 plus CF3 equals 8, then make this 0. In other words, if we've accounted for all 8 batters already, I don't want to have anything here. But if we haven't, then, and I'm going to add an if error here, and I'm going to tell you why afterwards. But now we're back to our large, and it's, again, same range. However, this time it's going to be CE3 plus CF3 plus 1. And then my if error is going to be 1. That if error is just going to be a catch-all that says that in the event that there's some weirdness that happens with counting these stacks, maybe like a team gets missed or something like that, it'll at least just put something here instead of throwing an error. Okay, not a big deal. But now we've got 5-1-1, which is a naked 5-man stack, a 5-2-1, which is a 5-2, a 3-3-1, which is a 3-3 stack, right? And I don't know if I don't have any here, but you could have a 2-2-2. Something like that, okay? But now we've been able to pull all of our stacks, and we have information here that is quite useful, right? So we know that this lineup is a 5-2, this lineup is a 3-3. Very, very actionable information. Excuse me 1 second here. For some reason, there's like a million messages going off, and oh my gosh, jeez. All right, sorry. There was a lot of notifications were going off to let me know that there was a hoax in my town at one of the schools, that there was an active shooter, but it was a fake call. And it's not my son's school, but it's still obviously pretty concerning. And I just wanted to read through that and make sure that that was definitely a hoax. There's something seriously wrong with people. Anyway, all right. So back to the stacks. So we've pulled in our stacks, but we put this whole batter section in here. So I'm pretty sure you can tell that we're going to eventually get to something there too. But the other thing we don't know is it's a 5-1, it's a 5-2, but it's a 5-1, 5-2 what? You don't want to have to come over here and be like, it looks like it's a Boston 5-1 because there are many Bostons. We can pull that information too. But let's give ourselves 6 more columns to work with. Okay? And let's go with a new color. Okay. Oops, what the heck am I doing? So stack 1, stack 1. Wait, what? Stack 2, stack 2, stack 3, stack 3. Okay. So now we're going to try to figure out what team this belongs to. Now, the good news is to figure out your main stack here, your largest stack, it's pretty easy. Not complicated. We're going to look in BG to BN3, which is, we're going to search in our teams list. Okay? And we're going to try to match this right here, CE3, that 5, and we're going to try to match it in the count section, BO to BV. So if we match it, if it's in the second one, we're going to read the second one over. Okay? Pretty simple. And it's Boston. So our main stack Boston, main stack Cincinnati. Okay. So that's pretty easy. Not a problem at all. I'm going to leave this alone because this is going to be for the batters. This is going to be the team for this substack. And in this case, it's just going to be one batter from that team. So realistically, these two are kind of equals. It's just going to be a team. It really doesn't matter. Do you really care if you have one batter from Boston, Cincinnati, and Boston, Minnesota? No. But you do want to know which team you have 2 batters from and which team from 1 batter from, right? In your 8 batters here. So the problem here is we could definitely do, again, I think this is another instance where I'm going to show you the wrong way to do it and show you why the intuition is inaccurate, because I think it'll help you to see that. So let's go ahead and do it the wrong way. The wrong way would be to use this fun short formula here, but instead of matching CE, to match CF. So wait, Toronto. Is Toronto one of our 1 teams? It is. So why is it wrong? Ugh, I gotta add a 1 in here just to copy this down to show you. Well, why is it wrong? It's right here. Is Kansas City the team we have two of? Yeah, it is. Is Minnesota the... Uh-oh. Minnesota's our main stack. Oh, it's because we have 3 Minnesota and 3 Yankees. So how do we get this to say Yankees? Or this, but, you know, because if it's a 3-3, it doesn't make a difference if it's which one is the main, which one is the sub. But how do we get this to say Yankees? The answer is a formula that's going to make you hate me and me hate you for making me do it. This is a very simple formula. This is not. But nonetheless, we got to do it. So what we need to do here is we need to say if M3 equals blank, then blank. Now this part has to say if, and then we're going to do an index match. Okay. And what it's going to say is if I should have left that because it was accurate, but it's going to be if looking in here and matching CF3 to here, 0, does not equal what is already in CH3. In other words, if we look here, get a result, and it does not equal Boston, then do it. What? I didn't do that. Why does it think that's what I copied? That's not what I copied. I copied from here. All right. Then do it. Okay. And in this case, that would be simple. It would work because I forget what it was. It was Toronto, right? So Toronto does not equal Boston. It'll put Toronto there. However, when it gets down to here, it does equal Minnesota. So then we need the what if it's false? What if the not equals Minnesota is false and it does equal Minnesota? Then we need to do something different. So then what we need to do is if it does equal it, then we need to check from here to here. In other words, if we know this is already accounted for, check here. So now we want to do another index of there to there, match CF3 again, but instead of this whole range too, we're going to match it in this range. Exactly. Okay. Now, the reason this is a problem is because what if this one matches? So now we need to nest another if around this, which says if this matches this also, we need to keep going and we need to keep going and we need to keep going. So I just wrote this out here to show you, like, kind of to follow, so you can follow along with it. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to erase this. And this is how I suggest you do this. I suggest you copy from this if all the way to here. Because each iteration of looking here, of looping, that's the formula you're going to use. you're just going to change it each time to move in one. So instead of BG, it's BH. And instead of BO, it's BP. Okay? And then if that doesn't equal it, you're going to make this also BH and BP. And then you need another comma. So it's actually probably better if you copy the comma too, because that way you don't have to keep typing. But now we need to go in another one. So instead of BH, and you want to keep this, now you want to go BI and BQ. So now it's BI, BQ, BI, BQ. Okay, and then BJ, because J comes after I, HIJ, Q, R, J, R, K, S, K, S. And you want to be very careful while you do this, okay? Because it's very easy to make a mistake. L, T, L, T. And, you got to check and see how far you want to go. So M, U, M, U, N. So wait, now we're at BN to BN, right? And BV to BV, right? Correct. So this will be the last one. See, it didn't suck that bad. And now instead of this, we're going to close our parentheses, however many it takes till you see the black one. And please don't give me an error. Nope. And now it's Toronto. Now, KC should stay KC, but this hopefully changes. Oh, thank God. All right. So now instead of Minnesota, Minnesota, we got Minnesota, New York, which is completely accurate. Okay. So that's how you do that one. Now, if you are a keen observer, you may have noticed that we have a third substack or second substack, third stack type, and that this problem could exist yet again. And that is accurate. And this time it sucks even more because it could be here or here. So that's fun, right? So this time, we need to do, I'm trying to think of the way that I could do this, that it doesn't confuse you the most. And unfortunately, I think it's starting over. I really do. I think it'll confuse the hell out of you if I try to reuse what's here. Let me, so this is again my first line, right? This is just my first line. But what we need to do now is if or. So in either case where, so if or, logical number one says that the index match of this does not equal CH3, okay, then also what we need to do here is we need to change CF because we're trying to match CG, okay? You know what, actually, again, I'm going to go all the way back to this just so I don't screw you up. If or looking in that range matches this, does not match CH3. So if matching CG, the result doesn't match CH3, and then, oh wait, no, sorry. Or so if or this match doesn't match CH, or that same match also doesn't match CJ3, then you can go ahead and use that match. Otherwise, and this is from here, now we have to repeat this formula all those times and change it every time. If, or, and again from BG, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to line this up so that I can see all of my BG and BO and all that. And I'm going to grab my clipboard, my clipping tool, and I'm going to clip these so that I can put these on my screen and I can look at them. You're not going to see them because they're off my screen. But now I'm going to go into this formula and say, so in the second iteration, instead of it being BG to BN, it needs to be BH, and this needs to be BP, and this needs to be BH, and this needs to be BP, and this needs to be BH, and this needs to be BP. Okay, so wait, right, and then let's go ahead and copy this again. And it becomes complicated. You got to really watch for it, okay? You got to make sure you've got the if or here that you're copying. I really hope I don't make this mistake. Let's do this. So if or, now instead of BH, now we're on BI and BQ. BI and BQ. And you're going to do it 3 times now. BI and BQ. Now, if you think what? I didn't hit anything. Don't do that. If you think you're going to make a mistake here and lose track, you can always keep going back and recopying the if or like this, because that's going to give you like kind of the iterative value that you need. So you know what I mean? Like, you know, you're on I, now you know you're on J. So you don't repeat something. You know, BQ becomes BR. It's totally up to you, if like however you want to do it. If you want to BJ, BR, BJ, BJ, BR. If you want to keep reusing the same one, and now you just know that, you know, in this take, I'm going from BI to BK because I already did BJ, and from BQ, I'm going to be S, BS. But, you know, it's totally up to you however you want to do this, okay? I'm going from I to K, Q to S, I to K, Q to S. There is something to be said about recopying it over and over again so that you don't lose track, because now I have to remember that I'm going to L, and I need to remember that I'm going to T, L T L T. So now we're going to be going to, and you're going to always visually trace back to the if or. So M U M U M U. And then last, BN to BN, BV to BV, BN to BN, BV to BV, BN to BN, BV to BV, and I think that's it. There's so many to close. No, there's an error somewhere. Of course there's an error somewhere. Ah, la 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 la. Kind of knew that was going to happen. One thing that's going to suck here is if the error is something that I repeated over and over and over again. Let's see what I did wrong. So if or does not equal CH3. Oh, you know what the error is? Hopefully you watch this long enough to not make this mistake. What I forgot that I need to do is because since we're using if or, before we get to our solution, like the yes, do this, like if it doesn't match this and it doesn't match this, then do use it. Because it's if or, I forgot. We need to put this here. We need to close this parentheses. See logical test ends. If otherwise, look, it's thinking I'm doing logical test 3, logical test 4. So I need to do that so that now it's saying value if true. Okay. So what I need to do here is at the end of my if ors. So then we go into a new if or. Then when I say, okay, go ahead and do that, so before I do that, we do that, right? So then if or, is it not CJ3? And then after CJ3, you want to add these. I think did I miss one? I feel like I missed one. I didn't, right? Guess I didn't miss one yet. So you want to keep adding them after the CJ3s. Sorry about that. I get confused sometimes too. Quite often, actually. And then obviously we're going to have to retract some of our closed parentheses at the end of this because they should have all, or half of them should have been put here. So, see, now we get a bunch of extra black ones, which we're going to take out. Sorry, Aragon? Aragon. And it says Toronto, which means that it still didn't work. Why didn't it work? That's so weird. Yeah, it is repeating. If, oh. No, that's a, if or. So this is, There's no way I didn't forget to do something. So this says if either the index of BG to BN3 doesn't oh, do I want this to be and if it doesn't match that and it doesn't match that? That might be it. Let's see if that's it. Let's see if it's all these ors should have been and. It's a nice short formula. All right, did I get rid of them all? Does that work? Ah, I think it should have been and. Yeah, I was just confusing the ors and ands, right? Now there's no repeats. Whew, okay, dodge that bullet. I wish I could tell you that's the longest formula that I've ever written, but it's definitely not. So now we got a Boston, Toronto, Philly stack. Is that what we actually have? It is. All right. So there we go. That's what it was. I screwed that up. No big deal. Okay, quickly, let's move on. Let's try to make this an under 2 hour video, shall we? Now we want to do batters. Now, we could easily just pull in the batters, right? It's a Boston 6, 2, 3, 5 stack. But wouldn't it be cool if we could pull them in order? Like a 1, 2, 3 stack or a 1, 2, 6, 7 stack? Yeah, that would be cool. So to do that, we have to pull first the batters and then put them in order. There's really not like a good one-step process for doing this. So let's add a helper column somewhere where it isn't going to bother anybody, like over here. Okay? And let's do 3 and merge, and we're going to say batters not in order. And stack 1, stack 2, stack 3. Okay. Batters not in order. Batteries not included. All right, batters not in order. So how are we going to pull these batters? Well, if M3 equals blank and blank, okay. Remember, this is all pertaining to like what's way over here, not this table. If M3 equals blank, then blank. Otherwise, if, and here's what we want to say is if, I passed it. If C3 equals 1, then blank. Because if there's no stack, if this is a completely uncorrelated lineup, then we don't want to start pulling batters. However, if now what we need to do is what did I just do? I accidentally got out of there. That's so much fun. Give me 1 second here. A little bit of housekeeping. Little bit of housekeeping. Okay. Okay. Yep. Obviously I deleted it. If M3 equals blank, then blank. if that equals 1, then blank. Otherwise. Now what we want to say is if team 1, the team for batter 1 is equal to this, is equal to our team here. Or actually, what I want to say, sorry, working this out. If Toronto, or batter team 1, equals Boston, right? Then this is the batter we want to pull. This one. Okay. So what I'm saying is we know that Boston is the stacks we're trying to pull here. So if this is Boston, then this is the batter, the first batter. If this is Boston, that's the first batter. And then if this is Boston, then that's the second batter, right? You get it? So we're going to do that. We're going to say if Boston equals Boston, basically, then pull that batter. Otherwise, blank. Leave it blank. Then we're going to concatenate. And now we're just going to go one more up, right? So we're going to do the same thing we did before with copying these formulas, and we're just going to add it, okay? And we're going to go one up to it. So instead of G, we're going to go H, and then if it's H, it's going to go to BX. See what we're doing? And we're going to need that 8 times, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it's going to go, if it's G, if it's H, if it's I, then it's Y. If it's J, then it's Z. If it's K, then it's ZA. Wait, it's not ZA, it's CA. If it's L, then it's CB. If it's M, CC. And if it's N, CD. And then we just want to close our parentheses. So there we go. There's our batters. 6, 7, 2, 1, 7. That's our 5 batters. Okay, so we got our 6 hitter, our 7 hitter, our 2 hitter, our 1 hitter, and our 7 hitter. Why is that? Why is it pulling? I wonder if that shouldn't. So we got batter. Oh, we got batter 3 batting 7th. Yeah, we got batter 3 batting 7th and batter 8 batting 7th, both for Boston. So maybe that's the problem, is that they potentially are both hitting 7th. That looks like it's probably the problem, because I don't think I did the formula wrong. I just think that batter 3 and 8 are Arroyo and Hernandez. So I think it's probably the case that Arroyo and Hernandez are both possibly batting 7th. Arroyo is batting 7th possibly, and not Cesar, Enrique is also batting 7th. So that's actually accurate right now because these lineups are not confirmed. So that's actually accurate. We're fine. We are fine. Now, this actually can be the same, except instead of CH, well, instead of CE, that's CF. And instead of CH, this should be CJ. So you just want to make, we're just going to change all of our H's to J's. And then, you know what? Let's get rid of this for this one, because we do want to see the 6th batter. Why not? Because it is possible to have a 5-1 or, you know, a 4-1. So that we don't want to include that. We don't want to include that first bit. It's not possible to have a 1 anything stack, but it's certainly possible to have a, you know, 6-7 2-1-7 6 stack. So let's do that. Yeah. Yeah. So now instead of CJ, we want to make the jump to CL. So now all my CJ3s become CL3s. And there's my other batter. Perfect. We can't send this down, unfortunately. There's way too many columns that do not have. So we'll just fire it all the way down to 202, which is 2002, which is what we know and love right there. Boom. And there's all of our batters, okay? But now these are, you know, we know that these are out of order, okay? So, and even though this is a helper column, it still deserves a little bit of love. So, you know, don't hate on it. Whatever. I don't know. It's ugly. Fix it. Batter's not in order. We know that this is in DB, DC, and DD, right? So let's come back to where we want to put our batters in order. Okay? To do them in order, we're going to do a formula that's just going to consist of 9 legs to it. Okay? 9 because there are numbers, you know, 1 through 9. First of all, if there's an error, okay, if there's an error, we're going to make this blank. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to search. We're going to search for an absolute value in that list in DB. We're going to search for an absolute value. But we want to pull the text of it over because we're searching for an absolute value. So the first function that we need is a text function. Inside that, we're going to put a search function. And search function is asking us, find what? Find the number 1. Where? In DB3. Where do you want to start looking? Character 1. And then format text, we're going to say 1, okay? Because that's going to format it as a 1. And then if there's an error, let's make it blank. And then we are going to concatenate yet again. But we are going to need to do this 9 times, like that line in Ferris Bueller. Your son has been absent 9 times. So, however, so that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5, that's 6, that's 7, that's 8, that's 9, and I don't need your ampersand there, sir. Only this time, we ain't looking for 1, we're looking for 2. And we are formatting it as a 2. And we ain't looking for 1, we're looking for 3. And we're going to format it as such. And we ain't looking for 1, we're looking for 4. 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, and I hope there are no errors in this because I'm sick of errors. 9 and 9. Okay, so at this point, it would appear that we are ready to try our formula, but I first want to tell you what's going on. So because I have sequentially looked for these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in that order, and then concatenated either 1 if it's there or a blank space if it's not, then what it's going to do is it's going to check the listing of batters that we put in our helper column back there. And if there's a 1 in it, it's going to populate a 1. If there isn't, it's going to be blank. But then it's going to go to the next one. And if there's a 2, it's going to put a 2. But if there isn't, it's going to be blank. And it's going to concatenate again. And so the net result is it's going to turn our 67217 into 1267. And now it really is a 12677, but that would now take a ton more code to make sure that if there's a duplicate 7 or a duplicate 2 that it listed as that. But don't worry about that because you're not going to have to worry about this because you're never going to be looking at this until lineups are confirmed. And at that point, you aren't going to have potentially 2 guys hitting 7. Okay, obviously, you're going to have guys that you know they're in the order. So I really wouldn't worry about that too much. Send her down. Okay. So now we've got our batters for there. The good news is, right? The great news is this formula is going to be the same for this, with the only exception being that we're looking in DC3. So we don't have to do any kind of crazy if or. We just simply change that to DC, and then, I forgot that I had copied something else into my primary clipboard. All right. And there we go. There are our batters. So now we've got a Minnesota 126, New York Yankees 345, and a Texas 1. And there are your stacks. You can call this stacks and give it whatever colors you like, fancy it up however you want. Put some lipstick on the pig and do it however you like, but that's all there is to it. And now you've got your stacks. You can use this information just to look and see, what your lineups look like, what kind of stacks you have. You can build some tables over here where, similar to your exposure table, you look for how many times do I have this 1, 2, 3 stack? How many times do I have the 9 hitter? There's tons of information that you can, glean from having this available to you. You could even come up with certain combinations that you would weight more heavily in your sorting. If you believe that the Cincinnati 2, 3, 4, 5 stack is the absolute stack of the day versus the Cincinnati 1, 2, 3, 7, you could find a way to give that a little bit more weight and weight this lineup a little bit heavier. Whatever you want to do. Hope this helps, and I will see you next time.